number 10, we have 4,797 years for Henri Parrot. Henri is a French man from the Basque separatist group ETA. The ETA is considered a terrorist group by the Spanish government, a lot like the IRA. Born in 1958, 32 years later, Henri was arrested after exchanging gunfire with police in Seville. Known as the King of the Car Bomb, Henri's attacks were bloodthirsty. For his involvement in the group's antics, he was given a 4,797-year sentence. This included time for 26 murders and 166 attempted murders. This teenager was arrested and faced 20 years in jail for posting lyrics to a rap song on Facebook at number 9. In June 2013, 18-year-old Cameron D'Ambrosio was arrested in Massachusetts for posting a rap verse on his Facebook page. The aspiring rapper referenced the Boston bombings which happened that year, which a lot of people found very distasteful. They wrote lyrics that went, "F a Boston bombing B, wait till you see that shit, I'ma be famous for rapping and beat every murder charge that comes across me," right? The kid did find fame, but not for rapping, for being thrown in jail for a Facebook post. The teen faced 20 years for making terror threats. Coming in at number 8, we have 161 life sentences for Terry Nichols. I don't actually know how many years that is exactly. Life can mean anything between 30 to 80 years. Either way, it's a really long time, and Terry will spend his entire life in a maximum security prison in Colorado. Why? Well, he was one of 2 people behind the Oklahoma City bombings of 1995. Therefore, he was charged with 161 counts of first-degree murder. His actions actually killed 168 people and injured 680. Nasty. Coming in at number 7, we have 1,000 years for Dudley Wayne Kaiser. Kaiser killed his wife, her mother, and a university student on Halloween in 1976. He was originally sentenced to the electric chair, but that was overturned. He was retried in the 80s, during which time he received his 10,000-year sentence, previously the longest in the world. Now in his 70s, he's reportedly a born-again Christian. Kaiser has since been denied parole 10 times. From one Oklahoma inmate to another, coming in at number 6, we have Darren Benefold Anderson. He was given 11,250 years. Anderson was convicted of robbing, kidnapping, and raping an elderly woman in 1993. He was originally sentenced to 2,200 years in jail, however, after appealing, his sentence was extended to 11,250 years. Coming in at number 5, we actually have Anderson's accomplice, Alan McLaurin. He was much luckier in his appeal, but he is now still serving 20,750 years in jail. Wait, what? Yep, that's right, McLaurin appealed his 21,250-year sentence and had 500 years lopped off. He'll be out in the year 9,746. So why were their sentences so harsh? Well, let's just say, yes, all rapes are deplorable, but the way this elderly lady was raped was absolutely vile. Coming in at number 4, we have 30,000 years for Charles Scott Robinson. This is the longest sentence ever given to an American. I mean, if you're a child rapist, you probably need to go to jail for literal ever. Sentenced in 1994, Robinson could not receive the death penalty because he didn't actually kill anyone, but he did rape 6 children, and luckily there is no hope of him ever being reintroduced into society. He can, in theory, apply for parole, but not until he is 108 years old, by which time he probably would have died. No tears there. Coming in at number 3, we have 42,924 years for Ottoman El Gnawi and Jamal Zougum. These deplorable humans were behind the 2004 Madrid train bombings and were sentenced to over 40,000 years in jail for the deaths of 192 people and the injuries of over 2,000 people. These guys were part of an Al-Qaeda inspired terror cell and were some of the only suspects that didn't kill themselves. So unfortunately, despite the long sentences, these guys may only spend 40 years behind bars because of Spanish incarceration rules. Another person who was sentenced for a ridiculously long time but will never serve it, coming in at number 2, we have 141,078 years for Chamoy Thipyeso. This is the world's longest sentence ever given for corporate fraud, making that all-important Guinness Book of World Records. The Thai national defrauded defrauded more than 16,000 people in a pyramid scheme worth over $200 million. Sure, she was sentenced to over 140,000 years in jail, but Thai law says that people cannot go to jail for fraud for more than 20 years. She was released in 1997 after serving just 8 years, so the original sentence just seems, I guess, like dramatic for the sake of being dramatic. Finally, coming in at number 1, we have 35 life sentences plus 345,035 years without parole for Martin Bryant. In 1996, the Australian mass murderer was sentenced for killing 35 people during the Arthur massacre in Tasmania in Australia. He received life for each person dead plus 1,035 years for wounding 23 people. As well, on top of that, he also received time for theft and arson. He is currently in Risdon prison in Tasmania and has no hope of ever leaving.
Let's start off this video in at number 10. First up, we have 13-year-old Willie, who thinks he's a tough guy.
You gonna get on my face?
I will stay in your face all day long. Do you understand me?
So that was tough guy 13-year-old Willie, who thinks his behavior is normal. He would often get suspended from school because of his anger issues.
When I get angry, I usually get mad, blow up, and try to fight everyone.
He would often fight with his young brother Cal. Willie would choke his brother during these fights, and also he's now starting to fight his mom.
I was trying to calm him down, and he slammed me on the ground. He was punching me and kicking me.
That is a very serious crime, so before it's too late for this kid, his mother contacted Beyond Scared Straight.
I think, this program will work for you. You can change, so you can really see what jail is really gonna be like.
So while on the program, Willie wasn't taking it seriously. He was all smiles when the police officers was talking to him, so the police officers got into the kid's face and broke him down into tears.
Okay, big man. Put your hands down before I take you down. I'm not playing with you.
Mama.
Go for it. Go for it.
She's the only
Why
one
you
that
got
really
them tears
cares
running
about
down
you.
your eyes? Go for it.
Let's just hope that something got through to this kid. If not, yeah, this TV show is gonna become a reality.
Coming in at number 9, we have 6,060 years for the Guatemala Civil War murderers. Carlos Antonio, Carice Lopez, Daniel Martinez, Reyes Colin, Gulip Manuel Pop, and Pedro Pimentel Rios were all sentenced to over 6,000 years for each of their roles in the horrifying Dos Eras massacre. In the massacre, over 200 indigenous and Mayan people were killed, including elderly people and children.
Moving into number 8.
My name's Anthony, I'm 19, I smoke, I drink, I steal. I done it all out here, man.
This kid thinks he's a tough guy and doesn't think there will be consequences to his actions in life. Well, 10th grader Anthony is about to get a wake-up call. Ring ring, who's that? Yeah, it's life. Anthony throughout the show was saying that he wasn't going to prison because he will never get caught. So he wants to continue his gang life and committing these horrible crimes. On Beyond Scared Straight, there was a scene during this episode where Anthony was locked up in a cell next to a murderer who was serving a 240-year sentence. That man was actually just 23 years old. His name was Chemo. The officer said, "Do you think this guy cares about you? People will just attack you in prison for no reason at all." Anthony was one of the toughest guys the show ever had because it took a while to break this kid. But in the end, Anthony realized that prison wasn't for him, so he actually has a new positive outlook on life, and he's planning on getting his GED and turn his life around. Number 7.
I don't know who you're talking to. You're not talking to me, miss. I don't care if you got a badge or a gun. I don't give a
Really?
Yeah.
Is this real life right now? This teen is for sure going to be going to prison very soon. Well, that was 15-year-old David, who has been charged for violence on his own family. David has a very bad temper, which seems to be the common element with all of these teenagers on this show. David breaks things in his house. He punched his mom's vehicle, the front glass windshield. This guy has no regard for anything. David's mom called a police officer after her window was smashed. 8 cop cars appeared, and David was telling them all off. David started throwing things and said, "You want a reason to arrest me? Well, here it is." And then yeah, he was arrested. They cuffed him and off to jail he went. David is always threatening his own mom. One time he even punched her in the face, and he's made other mini threats towards her. Well, on the show, David tried to show his toughness, but he broke down.
You love her to death?
Yes.
Then why are you treating her the way you are?
I can't control my I take a bullet for my mother, too. Yeah.
Number 6, we have this.
My name's Juvenile. I'm 15. I like to fight, smoke weed, and I'm a thief. I'm proud of all the bad things that I do.
That was 15-year-old Travis, who has huge anger issues. Oftentimes, Travis just looks for people to fight. He really enjoys beating up people because he believes that everyone deserves it, and he becomes proud of beating them up. Well, sorry to say, but in prison, he is going to be the one that's getting beaten up. Travis has a great chance of the show Beyond Scared Straight becoming a reality. He has been suspended more than 60 or 70 times. He has already been charged with breaking into someone's house. He just went inside their home and started stealing whatever he wanted, and he put all of the electronics and stolen goods into his backpack, and he was caught. He was sent to jail for a week or 2. And you would think that serving some time would, change a person, but for this kid, it didn't. Alright, let's take a look at another kid who thinks that they're tough in at number 5. This person needs a reality check, and let's just say he might have gotten one. This next teenager is 17-year-old Bryn Lee, who was sent to the rehabilitation show Beyond Scared Straight because of his violence. Bryn Lee would often hit his mother. During the beginning of the show, the kid was acting all tough and was saying that he's not afraid of anybody.
Be my straight up. And I'm a maker. What you looking at? Do something. You ain't gonna do. Expect your mama? Yeah.
Well, there was one woman on the show who was in jail. She seemed to get through to this kid.
Times. Them boys would love to have your punk.
Maybe you can talk to these other kids like that, but I damn sure ain't scared of you.
I don't want you to be scared of me, baby. I promise you I don't. I just want you to realize where your life is headed, honey.
After this conversation, both of them actually hugged it out. After the show was complete, Bryn Lee changed his ways and realized the path he was on, and he apologized to his mom. Next up, number 4, we have a computer hacker.
Just things such as hacking Facebook and sending viruses and breaking into banks, get access from a server from a website and pulling email account info, and that gets boring, so we go to the advanced things, and I don't really like to talk about the advanced things.
So that was 13-year-old Christopher, who is very intelligent, but he uses his smart for really dumb things. So does that even make him smart? He seems to be a smart dum-dum. This kid thinks he's a tough guy, but when faced with reality, he shows to be not so tough.
What you do with the computer?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Nope.
So you playing me for crazy now?
Nope.
You playing me for stupid now? So you did it, but you don't know what you did.
So at the end of the show, Christopher said he didn't realize how bad of a crime he was committing, and he realized that he could be locked up for a very long time. Christopher now attends MIT for computer science, and he's using his skills for good things now. Now at number 3, we have this.
Don't fight her. Don't fight her. Don't fight her.
Easy,
Don't
easy.
fight her. I got her.
So that was 16-year-old Jermea, who has a problem with fighting people. And even on their show, she seems to have a problem listening to the police officers. It's not worth trying to be a tough person. Where does it even get? Well, this anger issue seems to run in the family because her brother Jamal is also a fighter. He once punched his teacher in the face, and they're looking to press charges against him. So he might be on the show on the other side of things. He seems to be a tough guy in the streets, but when he's on the show, he didn't look so tough.
No, sir, I don't want to go in there, sir.
Let's go.
No, sir. No, sir, I don't want to go in there,
What
sir.
you mean? Why not?
Come on. No, sir, I don't want to go in there. I don't want to go in there.
This way.
This kid literally broke down in tears, and sorry to say, but if this was real life, buddy, your life in prison would be a very tough one. People are going to bully and fight you every single day because they see weakness. So maybe being tough isn't what you want. He seemed to be shooken up from this show, so hopefully he learned something. Number 2 is shocking. You're about to see 14-year-old Jasmine. She enjoys smoking weed, she snorts pills, she takes a lot of hardcore drugs. Jasmine is high all the time. She sneaks out of her parents' house and has a very bad temper. Currently, Jasmine lives with her grandma because her mother, well, she's currently in jail. So this is like a mother-like-daughter situation. For some reason, Jasmine believes that even with the path that she is on, that she's never gonna end up in jail.
Because my mom, she just got locked up. Not going to jail.
You know what? Your mother said that over and over again. And she's been in and out for the past 4 years.
Well, during the show, something shocking happened. Jasmine's mother appeared on the show unexpected, and her mom had a chance to talk to her daughter.
Stand up. My name's Nicole, Jasmine's my daughter, and I'll do anything to make sure that she doesn't end up in jail like me.
As soon as her mother appeared, Jasmine started to tear up. It was a very emotional moment.
Being able to pick up the phone and ask me if we can go to the mall, is it worth it? Is any of that worth it? Any of it? No. I would trade every name brand thing that you had just to be able to come home for a day.
And finally, at number 1, we have this kid right here.
My name is Brandon. I was brought on a jail tour because I was fighting, robbing people, selling drugs.
So that was Brandon. He was very mouthy on the show. One part, he told the officers that he loved touching women, and how if the officer had a daughter his age, she would be on his team. Well, Brandon was actually able to piss off the officer. Pretty sure this is one person that you don't want to be pissing off. Brandon has to realize that prison is the direction he is going into if he continues on this path. And he also has to realize that the show is very laid back in comparison to actually being in prison. If he told the officer he would bang his daughter, he would probably get thrown into solitary confinement where he is going to be broken. Also, if he melts off to another inmate in there, there's no telling what can happen. Brandon was actually so bad, the show kicked him out. The officers on Beyond Scared Straight realized that they weren't getting through to this kid, and they're just gonna see him very soon. They'll deal with him with no cameras rolling.
Step out. I'm done with you.
So tough.
How old are you? 16. I'll see you in 1 year.
Well, after the show, it was shocking. Brandon was, right after the show, he was sort of the same, but as time went on, Brandon started to change his ways. He changed his attitude around, and he started to calm down and realize what the program taught him in the short time that he was on it.
Getting kicked out made me realize it was time for a change.
Okay, coming into number 10, we have Serena Vella, who was jailed for skipping school. 11th grader Serena loves Harry Potter, Katy Perry, and was sent to jail for cutting school. The Texan teen was struggling, and she simply couldn't face it. Now, Serena is from a low-income home, and her mother is unemployed. She received fines from her school for truancy totaling $2,700. Because she couldn't pay, she was sent to jail for 10 days. In jail, she was thoroughly searched and locked up amongst adults who committed serious crimes. Now, ironically, Serena had to miss 9 days of school while she was behind bars, which resulted in her being expelled, which is really, really sad. What kind of system locks up a teenager for skipping school rather than finding out what is causing the problem?
Number 9.
Watch your mouth!
You are not at home, gentlemen. You are not at home.
That was 16-year-old Keshawn, who is in a gang. 16 years old, already a gang member. He steals cars, guns, whatever he can get his hands on. He is often very violent and can't control his temper. His mom brought him to this program to try to break him. Well, it seems like Keshawn's toughness kept with him during this whole program. He didn't want to listen to any officers. He wasn't taking this program seriously at all. He thought he can get away with whatever he wants to.
You will not disrespect me in my house. Is that understood?
This kid just started this program and already got himself arrested.
What the wrong with you, dog? Chill out. You are starting in the wrong way.
I mean, man, Keshawn. When Keshawn was in the prison, he started acting up, calling out other inmates. He then started to spit on the floor, so the officers had to restrain him and put a spit hood on his head.
It's a spit hood. Spit hood.
Coming in at number 8, we have Gonalo Wilson, who got 10 years for having consensual oral sex with another teenager. In 2005, 17-year-old Gonalo Wilson had consensual oral sex with another teenager at a New Year's Eve party. I guess it happens. The teenage girl was 2 years younger than him at 15 years old. Despite the girl, whose name is protected, repeatedly telling the courts that the act was consensual, Wilson was sentenced to 10 years in jail, which is pretty insane. Legally, as the girl was 15, she couldn't consent. However, provisions could have been taken into account had they had full penetrative sex, but there's no such legislature for oral sex. Luckily for Wilson, he was released after serving 4 years, but honestly, this is insane. Coming in at number 7, we have 20 years for a Daytona teenager. Kay Andrea Cook's sentencing was very dramatic and very sad. This 17-year-old was sentenced to spend the next 2 decades of her life in prison for carjacking and battery. The girl used a dating app to set up a robbery which resulted in her boyfriend shooting a man, who was wounded but didn't die. Kay Andrea was told by her attorney that she wouldn't receive jail time if she pleaded guilty to her part of the involvement in the crime. The video of the girl's sentencing in 2017 went viral as people watched her and her mother break down. Slightly better news for Kay Andrea came in 2018 when a judge amended her super harsh sentence to 11 years. The teen and many others still feel that she was wrongly advised by her defense team in the first place. Coming in at number 6, we have Blake Lehman, who got 55 years for breaking and entering. Blake Lehman was 16 years old and living in a small town in Indiana when he made a bad decision that would land him in jail for 55 years. The teenager had a clean record and had not been in trouble with the law before. However, his whole life changed one night. Lehman and a group of slightly older friends, including 21-year-old Denzel Washington, got high and decided on a whim to break into a home. They noticed that their neighbor Rodney Scott's grey truck was missing. They assumed he was out. Assuming the coast was clear, they broke into his house, and although they were unarmed and for all intent and purpose, actually it turned out very badly. It seems that Scott was not out, he was upstairs sleeping and he was awoken by the trespassers. In classic America style, he came downstairs with a shotgun and shot at Lehman and Washington. The older boy died from his injuries. Now, Indiana law protected the shooter, Rodney Scott, from culpability in the murder, and instead the teenage boy was charged with felony murder. All Lehman did was foolishly decide to break into a neighbor's home unarmed, but his friend ended up being killed by the neighbor. The blame then fell on Lehman, who was, if we remember, also shot. He was sentenced to 55 years in a prison cell. Coming in at number 5, we have the teen jailed for life for killing her child predator. Cyntoia Brown's case is still ongoing and has received a lot of media attention. In 2004, Cyntoia was served a life sentence aged just 16 for murdering a man in Nashville. Cyntoia killed a 43-year-old man who'd paid to have sex with her. The teenager's childhood was marked by abuse. She was raped and forced into prostitution. Last year, pop star Rihanna spoke up for Cyntoia on social media. She shared a text image saying, "Imagine at the age of 16 being sex trafficked by a pimp named Cutthroat. After days of being repeatedly drugged and raped by different men, you were purchased by a 43-year-old child predator who took you to his home to use you for sex. You end up finding enough courage to fight back and shoot and kill him. You were arrested as a result, tried and convicted as an adult, and sentenced to life in prison." This is the story of Cyntoia Brown. She'll be eligible for parole when she's 69 years old. Now, the last I heard, with the support of major celebrities, she is now facing a parole board. Coming into number 4, we have Kenneth Young, who was given 4 sentences for robbery. Kenneth Young received an insane amount of time behind bars for a series of armed robberies he committed in the year 2000. The then 15-year-old had been raised in a low-income neighborhood by a drug-addicted mother. He was told by a 24-year-old crack cocaine dealer, Jacques Batha, that his mother would be killed if he didn't assist him in the robberies. When captured for his involvement in a string of robberies, he was given a shocking and unprecedented 4 life sentences, despite nobody being seriously injured or killed from his actions. In 2011, he went before a judge for resentencing. Instead of releasing the young man who had already served 11 years, his sentence was changed down to 30 years, which I still think is extremely harsh. Coming into number 3, we have Bobby Bostick, who got 241 years for a string of robberies. Like many of the teenagers on this list, Bobby was born in a poor family. Growing up in Missouri, he started smoking and drinking age 10. Age 11, he started stealing cars. In 1995, when he was 16, he robbed do-gooders at gunpoint for money at Christmas time. One of his victims was grazed by a bullet. Now, this obviously is an awful crime, but Bostick received an unprecedented 241 years in jail for his crimes that didn't actually kill anyone. You guessed it, he was denied a plea deal and was met with the full fury of Judge Baker, who said, "You made your choice and you're gonna die with your choice, because Bobby Bostick, you will die in the Department of Corrections." Harsh. 241 years for a teenager who is told that they're gonna die in jail. Honestly, it's insane. Bostic has given a number of interviews about what it was like growing up in prison. Now, the judge involved has even said that she regrets giving him the sentence, saying the amount of time is ridiculous. Coming into number 2, we have Travian Blount, who got 268 years. Blount was handed 6 life sentences for robbery in 2006. At the time, the 15-year-old held up a Norfolk house party with 2 18-year-olds. Nobody was harmed and no shots were fired. The teens did steal marijuana and cell phones, as well as a small amount of cash. The jury convicted the teen for 49 separate felonies, and Blount argued he wasn't guilty of all of them. He was given 6 life sentences plus 118 years, totaling 268 years, which is outrageously harsh considering that nobody was seriously hurt, let alone killed. Blount fought his case, but his co-defendants got just 14 years as they accepted plea deals, which I think is really unfair. In 2014, he was given a partial pardon with his sentence reduced to 40 years. He still has another 29 years to go, while his co-defendants will be out soon. That's what you get for trying to fight your innocence within a system rooted against you. Finally, at number 1, we have the death penalty given to a girl for killing her rapist. What kind of world are we living in where a man shoots a kid dead and he gets let off for self-defense even when the kid wasn't armed, and across the world a different teenager is sentenced to death for killing a man who repeatedly raped her? It goes to show that the justice system in the United States is just as broken as it is in Sudan, a third world country. Amnesty International were fighting for 19-year-old Noura Hussein Haman's life after she was handed the death sentence by a Sudanese court. The teenager was married against her will aged 16. She refused to consummate her marriage, so her husband got his 2 brothers and his cousin involved to hold her down while he raped her. The next day, he tried to rape her again, but she escaped to the kitchen. As he cornered her, she grabbed a knife and stabbed him, fatally wounding him. She's been in a women's prison awaiting death since 2017.